Hey, it's Andrew Downs. I'm proud to support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media, and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
Would you like to sample some of my nuts?
You can lift your weights, you can run your miles, but you ain't got what's been earned through trials. It ain't in the gym, ain't in the youth, it's in busted knuckles and hard-lived truth. Back's been sore since 99, but I still stack wood and I still outgrind. Call me slow, call me old, but I got hands that could bend pure gold. Ain't about muscle, ain't about speed, it's about the fire when the time comes to lead. You can talk real tough, you can flex real wide, but when it's time to dig in, boys, step aside. Old man strength, built to last, years of work, no need for class. Ain't no quit, ain't no doubt, you don't know tough till you've been worn out.
Welcome to another episode of Old Man Strength, brought to you from the AKC Andrew Downs Marketing Studios and sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company, Greenberry Realty, and Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage. I am your host, Chris Shipley, joined as always by my partner in crime, Aaron Wall. Aaron, tell me that opening isn't fire. It gets me jazzed up every time I hear it.
Sure. If you say so.
Come on, man. It's a
I
catchy
mean,
little tune.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
You are a grumpy old man.
Yeah, that's why I'm the perfect fit for old man.
How was your weekend?
I'm the grumpiest 46-year-old on the planet, according to my wife. So,
yeah. How'd you do? How was Mother's Day? Did you perform all your duties?
I mean, yeah,
It came out really bad, by the way.
we don't do a whole lot. She sits around and we clean the house and do all that stuff. And I made her shrimp and grits for dinner and collard greens and stuff like that. So she gets to eat one of her favorite things, and that's typically how it goes for us.
Nice, not bad. It's a good day.
No,
laundry can wait till today. She can do laundry today.
Yeah, well, it's already done. You realize I do laundry for a living, so it's not like I don't know how to do it. So
I was just trying to get you in trouble.
Yeah, no, but you were telling our guests who will be on here in a minute that I normally make fun of you. I'm not going to make fun of you today.
I appreciate that.
I'm going to brag.
Okay.
I'm going to pull my dad card and brag a little bit.
Sweet.
So my daughter, who is a freshman in high school, went out for golf this year. She started playing about a year and a half ago. Not even really that long ago. Probably really started playing a year ago. And never really played on a course until golf season started, other than a few times with grandma and grandpa. She has been the number 5 varsity golfer all year.
Nice.
She qualified for districts. So her and the top 4 all qualified for districts. So they're going to districts, has a chance to go to state as a team for sure, because they haven't lost a meet all year. But she played a practice round today, and this is what's going to make you feel real bad, Chris. She shot a 40.
Oh my God.
On 9 holes.
Yeah.
5 over par, because it's a par 35 on the front 9, the course they play. So, but shot a 40.
That's awesome.
Shout out to my daughter, who will never listen to this, but super proud of her, and she loves golf now, and glad that she's got something that she can carry on for the rest of her life to play and do, and it's great. So that's great. It. I'm done bragging.
That's awesome. Great job. All right. Well,
I didn't do anything.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to her.
All right.
Maybe she will listen. So, she ain't listening. All right. Nobody's on here to listen to us, so we thought let's go ahead and bring on our guests. As usual, Kishragi hooked us up with a couple awesome guys. As part of what we do here on Old Man Strength, we sometimes like to bring on Cyclone legends, Cyclone lore, things like that, learn about the history of Aaron and I's alma mater. And tonight we have two major, what I will call Cyclone super fans. Both professed, I think, are well known for their work in the community, work around the Iowa State athletic department, things like that. So we have Hank Kohler, Papa Team Tim Gleason on. Guys, thanks for hopping on Old Man Strength with Aaron and I.
Glad to be here.
Thank you, Chris. Welcome, Aaron.
Thanks.
So we have Hank on the right for everybody, Tim on the left. Hank, let's start with you. Why don't you give I gave a really brief introduction. Why don't you give everybody, why don't you both of you guys give a brief introduction about who you are and what makes you Cyclone super fans?
Okay, well, I grew up on a farm up in northwest Iowa, as you can see from my appearance back in the dark ages, a long time ago. And I actually went to UNI. So until my wife and I got married in 76 and moved to Ames, I was not a Cyclone fan. You know, I really wasn't a fan of much anything because when we were up there, UNI wasn't very good at much, you know. But of course, we started raising our family in Ames. We were in Ames from 76 to, well, till about 79 or 80, and then moved out down to Muscatine for 5 years and came back in 84. And that's really the time then that it got to be real exciting for me and our family as far as Iowa State athletics. I ran into some great friends playing ball like Lefty Moore and his connections. You know, our football team back then wasn't very good at all, but boy, the tailgates were fabulous. And we had so much fun. And I was owning a Happy Joe's Pizza restaurant and I had the franchise for that. So, you know, it was a family-run pizza place, and of course, we made a good product and tried to be nice to people, but we didn't have the advertising budget to be on your nightly news as far as ads go or nationally or anything. So we had to do grassroots things around the community and try to get involved with the grade schools, high schools, and of course, Iowa State. So throughout the years, we formed relationships with various coaches from Ed Gagne back with the gymnastics team to, you know, on through Coach Mack and Coach Walden earlier than that. And it's been a good run. And through all that, I ran into this guy over here about in the middle of that. He was also in the restaurant industry. I got to tell you, he worked harder than me. My motto was make a good product, be nice to people, and go fishing. You know, I was never about seeing how much money I could make out of the whole deal. But Tim Gleason and I became friends, and I'll let him kind of take it away as far as his background from Iowa State, and then he'll explain how he ended up with his fire truck.
Well, yeah, my wife probably knew Hank long before all of my friends did because I was working at Hickory Park with the old nose of the grindstone, just working. Never went to any of the kids' functions until about, I think my oldest was about 10 years old when I kind of ran into this guy and he told me life's too short to be stupid and doing the things I was doing. So he's the reason that I ended up not making any more money because I just started
It's the reason we're both broke.
Yeah. It's the reason I had to go back to work. No, but I graduated from Iowa State, so did my wife. And in 1978, I was wearing this hat when I climbed the goalpost when we beat Iowa 31-0 with Dexter Green running all over them. And this is the exact hat, and I still wear it today every time I drive the fire truck. So I say I bleed red and gold. I work for Iowa State now. I'm in the transportation department. I do a lot of shuttling people around. I know all of the coaches of the golf, tennis, all the lesser ones that don't have the big budgets. We do the transportation for them. So I've gotten in really close with them. And in general, I just love being around Iowa State. If you want that, the fire truck started as a Hickory Park story. I was sent down to Des Moines to buy a cube van, you know, a box truck for Hickory Park. And when I got down there, I had the cash that Mr. Wheelock had agreed to pay. And I saw this old fire truck sitting there, and I asked the guy, "What's the deal with that?" He said, "Well, I wanted to be in a parade, so I bought it, but now my wife says I have to get rid of it." I kind of put that in kind of dropped that, and then went and started really looking at this truck going, I can't believe he agreed to pay you this much. Look at this rust here. Look at that. So I really knocked that truck down. And I told him I I can't in good conscience pay you the $2,500. He says, but I need that. I said, well, I tell you what, you throw that fire truck in on the deal and you got it. So basically, I got the fire truck for free. So I then took it, parked it in, this is probably 1989, parked it in Shipley, Iowa, where Hickory Park had some storage stuff there.
I'm sorry, you parked it where?
Shipley, Iowa. Yeah.
Shut the front door. I had no idea there was even. I had no idea there was a. I'm
We
literally.
assumed they named it.
I thought it
after
was
you.
named after you. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. No,
you got to get out of your basement once in a while, Chris.
I do. I don't even know where this is at.
It's kind of on the way to Maxwell.
Yeah, I don't know where that's at either.
Okay.
Oh,
It's not that
literally
far.
A
not
little
very far
town
from Ames.
just east of Ames.
Oh my
about
God!
about
This is a
5
game
miles
changer. I
south
had
of
no
Highway
idea.
30.
I see. I found it now.
Okay.
Oh, fire.
And so there it's at, and kind of forgot about it. Went about my life and was having more fun thanks to Hank. And in the summer of '95, I think it was, we were playing as after softball game, and can't remember where. I think we were in were we at Okoboji? Was it that called that then?
I don't know.
We were having a couple of beers, lamenting the fact that the van that our friend Dan Krogman had, our tailgate vehicle, was done. It wasn't going to make it. And Hank and his brother Keith and I were sitting there, and all of a sudden I said, I got this old fire truck. And Keith's eyes popped right out of his head. You could take it from here.
Well, all I know is we found out that Tim had a fire truck. We found out it was hiding in Chris's backyard.
Yeah.
In Shipley, Iowa. And that I don't believe it had been run for 10 years or something like that. And I just remember one night, aptly, let's say, liquidated. I can't even say that word, but we drank plenty. And we headed over to Shipley to find this fire truck. And things got a little hazy, but I do remember, thanks to our friend Dan Krogman of Current Electric and that, within a couple visits of the truck, we not only started it, but we drove it back.
But it was a good thing that we couldn't get it started that night. The
first night.
First night. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
So we ended up starting. We just tailgated with it. I believe we were in B3, and this coincided with Dan McCartney's first year, and he had started the process of just pulling the buses up and letting the athletes get off. And so they pulled all the way up to the end of 10 row. And I think it was Hank's idea. I mean, these things have awesome sirens. This thing has awesome sirens.
Cyclone sirens.
Cyclone sirens. I swear that they record the stuff you hear in the stadium. They secretly recorded my fire truck because it sounds exactly like it. I need my NIL money. No, just kidding. But so we started blowing the sirens from the time the first person got off the bus till the last person got off. And we got our probably 2 years later, I believe it was Gene Smith contacted you.
Yeah, I used to play ball with Gene Smith when he was AD here.
Okay.
Sunday mornings down at Bayer Hall. Great guy, by the way. You know, he was on that Notre Dame team that Rudy was on.
Was he really?
Yeah.
And I asked him about that, and he said, that's bullshit. He said, we were going to give our jerseys up if he didn't get to play. What a cry. But anyway, Gene, of course, now he's at Ohio State. But he's a great guy. And through his connections then, we were able to, Tim can take from there, but basically he started leading the team in to where.
We'll go one section. Gene asked us at 20 minutes before the game to blow the sirens for, like 5 minutes straight. And that was a sign to let people it's time to head into the stadium. Put your beers down and get in and watch the team. Well, so we did that, and we were happy to do that. Well, in the summer of '98, I was driving around, and I had a load on it. And this is when it was original. It wasn't painted like it's painted today. And I had a load of people on. We were just driving around giving people rides, and we ended up let me go back to the last game of the season before that. His brother and I drove it over to an after end of season party over at it was over near the Ledges. So Keith, and this was all, it had the original engine in it. He said, this thing's running good enough. I think we'll take it to Iowa City. So that summer, I ended up outside Dan's house, and he came out and we said, Coach, we're tired of losing to Iowa. It's been 15 years in a row. We're going to drive this old fire truck over there and cheer you on.
Hell yeah.
We drove it over there and they won. And
Well, Mac told Tim right there in his front door with a drink in his hand, a big smile on his face, says, if you drive that truck over there, by God, we're going to win.
And coaches are kind of superstitious. So
Yeah.
It was the next year, Frank Randall contacted us and asked if we wanted to lead the team in. And the rest is kind of history. The nice thing about it is that before we started leading the team in, we had we had contacted a bunch of, let me get a picture. Talk for a bit, Hank.
Oh, I'm supposed to talk for a bit. Anyhow, one of the things he's going to do is probably go through a list of the bowl games that the fire truck has been to.
Yeah.
You know, things like Boise, Phoenix. Well, go ahead and look at this. But the interesting thing, if they're close enough like Shreveport, we drive it there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So you see those little signs on it. I kind of sold advertising to raise money, and then we had Tim Sherman. Sherman Auto Body is the one that painted it. So luckily, before we got the call from Frank Randall, we had already painted it up and got it looking good. So as Hank said, the maiden voyage out of town was to Iowa City, and we did that several times. And until we had some ex-players that would just sit on the fire truck and while we went into the game. And then once we lost the players, you know, we had nobody to do that. It got vandalized, so I just stopped bringing it over there.
Yeah.
One of the fun stories about going over to Iowa City was when, and Chris, you said your dad was from East Des Moines.
Yes.
Would he know Mel Crippen, the radio guy from here in Ames? That of course,
Possibly.
Mel
He passed away, unfortunately. So,
well, Mel's older than me, but he was the voice of KASI, Mel in the Morning here for decades, and a wonderful person. And one time on the trip to Iowa City, he went along and just did live broadcasts as we're going down the highway and bars, places we'd stop. And then once we got to Iowa City, so that was a classic trip.
That was the picture that I just showed you. Mel was standing in that picture.
Good.
Okay. Shroggy sent over a couple. I've got this one here. This is him with with you, Tim, in front of the ambulance. So you've had it since 19. You said.
Well, I've had it since 19. I think I bought it in '89.
Okay. But
it's been officially part or unofficially part of Iowa State. We've been leading the team in since '99. So that's 20. This will be 25 years. No, 20. Yeah, 25 years.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question based off my experience of only having the ambulance for a year. And the ambulance that we have is a 1989 Ford F350. You ever get nervous just that this thing might break down on the way there and just get like, what are you going to do when it broke down? And
all the time.
Yeah.
We had one instance when we were waiting to lead the team in, and I had no less than 3 mechanics there. We're having some sort of carburetor problems, and we just couldn't get the thing running and didn't get it done. And after the buses came and we weren't leading them in, I got calls from several coaches' wives asking me where the heck I was. And it was like, sorry, we couldn't do that. So that was probably the only time that we missed leading the team in at home. We also drove it down to the Eddie Robinson Classic, the one that we got robbed.
Oh, in Kansas City. Yeah,
Seneca was in.
Yeah.
And Hank was driving it at the time, and I'd never been going so fast through a parking lot because we were ahead of the buses, and he'd look in the rearview mirror, and the bus driver's like,
"Go, go, go!" So we went. One thing about it, even though it's not legal for that, if you hit those sirens, everybody kind of gets out of your way.
Oh, when I got the ambulance, I called my friend Sergeant Paul Parisic. He's the Des Moines Public Information Officer here in Des Moines, and I said, I just need to know what the rules are here on these sirens and lights. And he's like, as long as you're not on a public roadway, you can run them. So I was like, okay, well, great. I was like, I won't do that. So literally last summer, I had to replace the 2 headlights on the front of that ambulance because one of them was kind of broken, and it had a power coupling into the back end of the headlights.
Right.
Well, the new headlights I bought didn't have that, and I didn't know what they were for.
They were for your lights.
Well, they were for the siren. So when I got to the first game, I was all excited. I was going to turn these sirens on as soon as I got into the tailgate lots, and it was like a whimper. It was just, you could barely hear it. And I looked at my buddy Tim, and I was like, well, fuck, I think we unhooked those things. So I rectified that. I bought a new set of sirens for it. It's pretty cool now. But yeah, it's amazing what you can find and what you realize is all attached in those old type vehicles.
Well, there's speaking of sirens, Hank's mom, Hank and Keith's mom, she loved running the sirens, and she was always sitting up front with me. And normally what you do with the sirens is that you run it up to peak and then you back off and you run it up to peak so it has that wail. Not Eileen. She hammered that soprano siren full tilt the whole way. There's kids running around like this as we're driving through.
I think Tim should go through kind of a list of places, that the fire truck has shown up at, either because we drove it there, as in bowl games and that, or because he shipped it out there on trucks. Let me see if I can go through something.
Yeah.
I know we drove it to Shreveport to the Independence Bowl
The second time.
We've driven it.
Drove it once.
Oh, shipped it once?
Yeah, the first time it went on the flatbed with Kearns' truck.
Okay, he's got better memory than me.
That's when we stayed in the zoo.
Okay.
And we got all those.
I feel like we need to hear that story.
Well, it was by the stadium. It was just called the zoo, and it was an old defunct zoo. We probably should have been locked in the cages, but that's another story.
And then it got shipped to Phoenix.
That was the first road trip,
and that's the first bowl game that Iowa State ever won.
Yep,
in the history of the school. And we've got stories of when we've got that down there now and it's off the truck and we're tailgating going all around the parking lots and the stadium and that. And we've got copious amounts of adult beverages. We got the lights and sirens and stuff going, and we get stopped by one of the local
gendarmes.
Yes. And he said, that's not an official emergency vehicle. Go park it right now. You can't be out in the street with that, stuff like that. So we're hiding the booze and we got our tail between our legs. About 2 more blocks, we got stopped at another light, and this other big cop goes, he's got a little more bars on him. He goes, you guys having fun? I said, well, we were. Kind of, the guy back there said we had to shut off the lights and stuff. He goes, oh, that's bullshit. He goes, enjoy yourself. Tell him what Captain whoever said, go have fun.
If I could show you this. I had a little incident when we were loading the fire truck to go to Phoenix. The gentleman who told me what the rating was on his ramps didn't really know it. And as I was driving up onto the flatbed, I got my front axle on. And as I was coming up the ramps, one of the ramps broke. So this is Christmas morning. I was sitting there, 30 below zero, one axle on the truck, one axle on the ground, one ramp. So I called my friend Butch Anson when Butch owned Butch's Amoco. We actually work together at Iowa State Transportation now. And he came out with 3 tow trucks. So 2 of them had to lift the back of it up, and then he had to hook onto the trailer of the semi, and then with his other cable, pull the fire truck on. So for a while, I'm like suspended in the air by 3 cables. We got it all the way down there, but this is when it was painted, but it still had the original Red Diamond 6 motor in it. And once we got it down there, we were getting ready to go down to the pep rally, and we started it up, and it was running horrible. I mean, I think we cracked the head. And his brother was doing the driving. He said, hey, there's no way I can drive this through Phoenix traffic. So we put it back on the semi, and I thought we were done for. About 5 hours later, we're in the hotel room. We get a call from the truck driver, him and his dad. They go, is this what this thing's supposed to sound with? I don't know what they did, but they got it running.
Really?
So then it goes into Hank's story about driving around. And actually, the last time we made one more run after the one cop said we could have fun, we got to the corner. I saw an officer on a horseback pick up his microphone and lean down to Keith. I said, Keith, that's about us. Pull into the lot. So we pulled into the lot and scattered.
Yeah, the truck also got shipped out to Boise.
Boise was fun.
Well, except for the game on
Except
the blue
the
turf.
game.
Yeah, the game wasn't any fun.
No, that wasn't any fun at all. Of course, Seneca had kind of got boogered up.
The second play.
He wasn't 100%, so we were kind of behind it there. I can tell you one thing about driving it back from Shreveport once, and I don't remember if it's the bowl game that we drove it to that we lost or
No,
won.
we won.
Okay,
that.
so we won that one. So we're driving it back. We're going to drive it back, and I decided to, because it doesn't go all that fast, so I'm just going straight up through Arkansas instead of trying to go around and stay on really good 4-lane interstates and stuff. And we'd all partied a whole lot the night before, but I couldn't get this guy to even stay awake. So you got a picture. If you look at that truck, there's no doors. It's just open seat. Okay. So Tim is supposed to be next to me. He's just kind of laying over there sleeping. The windshield wipers don't work. And we get it in the mountains of Arkansas and it's raining. And I'm looking around trying to look past the windshield. There's a roll of paper towels there. So now I'm taking my hand and taking the whole roll and acting like windshield wipers with one of it while I'm trying to do this. And I'm going around cornering these things. And whenever I take it to left, Tim would tip over that way. And I swear sometime I was going to look over and go,
he ain't there.
my buddy gone. But no, he hung over and hung in and made it all the way back. God, it was a long drive. Woo.
Oh yeah, that would have to be a long drive.
Yeah, we lost. We had put in. That was when it had. We had switched the motor. We did away after the Phoenix trip. We realized we limped through the next season. Iowa was here, so we didn't have to go anywhere. And that's when we did take it. We trailered it down to Shreveport with the original motor in it. And the next season, I talked with Butch, and he said, "You want to keep it original, or what do you want to do?" I said, "Let's just pull it out, pull the old motor out, pull the pump out," and we put a Chevy 350 turbo 400 into it. But his mechanic was a magician. So if you look at it, it's got the old, 5-speed granny low shifter on it, but it's an automatic. You just put it back. So we kept that look, but I don't know.
Well, I know one thing. We could talk about one of the funnest trips that ever went on, and when was Seneca was our quarterback, and we're down by 17 at Kinnick at halftime. Was that 2001?
That was 2001 because that was the game that was delayed because of 9/11. They played it in November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're down by 17 at half.
That was the one where Brad Banks fumbled a couple times.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, twice.
Well, Aaron Greving, also our buddy here from Ames, gave us a safety. Thank you very much, Aaron.
Yes.
No, but anyway, so by the time the game's over, we've won, And my son Andy was on the team at that time, and he remembers coming in at halftime, and everybody's sitting down, got their heads down. Most of them had helmets off. They feel like shit. They look up, and Mac walks in the door, and he's got a full Gatorade bottle in his hand, like one of those big old quart Gatorades. Doesn't matter what color. And without saying a word, he walked in, and he threw it at the brick wall in the locker room about 7,000 miles an hour, and it blew up everywhere. And Andy said, everybody in the room said, "You know what? Fuck it. We're going to win this now. We just knew we were going to win it." And they went out and won it. So afterwards, we're running around down there having fun. And Tim had these 6-foot-high, great big speakers that was for a karaoke machine.
Karaoke machine. Yeah, they were 6-foot PV stacks.
But we had those on the truck, so we could crank tunes. I mean, really play some loud music, work that out so it was powered through there. And we drove all around through downtown, or whatever they call their campus town, basically having more fun than we deserved, and not making fun of the team we beat, but just letting them celebrate. old Redbone song, Come and Get Your Love. We had that at 93.7 decibels for about 17 loops, just kept doing it over and over again.
I'm going to shock Aaron with this, but I don't know what that song is.
I knew you
Oh,
did.
come on.
He doesn't know.
What's the name of it?
It's anyhow. It was a
Come and
memorable
Get
night.
Your Love.
Come and Get Your Love by Redbone.
The band is Redbone, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was one of our
okay.
good trips. A bad trip was when we drove it to DeKalb, Illinois for a Northern Illinois game. What year would that be, Tim?
That would have been in
2003. You have written down there.
Yeah.
So we're going to go play a MAC team on their field, which was kind of a bad situation, but that's what worked out with the contracts and that. A, they were good. B, we got a few people hurt. And C, their fans were horribly rude. And D, their stadium was awful. And it was a bad trip, tough trip.
Let me jump in there because that was the year that we had put the new motor in, so it could really go. So we're heading down.
No speedometer so we didn't know how fast it could really go.
So we leave Ames and we get on 30 and we just go straight across. And as I'm going down these hills, I'm picking up speed, but I'm losing it on the top. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, we should have put a big block in there. This thing just doesn't have the power. Not realizing how fast we were going. We got to the river. Hank looked at his watch and went, holy crap.
I don't know, we averaged like 70 miles an hour all the way down.
And before we were going over there, this is to show you the caliber of some of their fans or their mentality. This is back when the internet was kind of new. So I got into a chat room and I wanted to find out where we could park to tailgate because I said I was bringing this antique fire truck over. Well, most of their friends were nice, and I had this one guy jump in. That's when they had Michael Turner was a running back.
The running back, yeah.
So he goes, so you're bringing a fire truck over to try and put out the flames of Turner the Burner? Fat chance, corn boy. And I answer him, corn boy, question marks. You live in DeKalb, Illinois, and you're calling me corn boy? But we were gonna meet the team and lead them to the stadium, and Don Knock, who was the director of operations, said, Tim, they're throwing bottles at the buses. He was afraid people were going to get hurt if we came. But Coach Max said that they were in his entire career of playing and coaching. That was the worst group of fans he'd ever encountered.
That surprised me. I've been on that campus one time. It was a shithole.
Yeah. So. Oh, well, maybe it's better now. That's been a long time ago.
I don't
know. This was 20 years ago about 17 years ago. So
I gotta jump in for a second and thank you guys because one, I was in college when we beat Iowa that time, and you guys were over in Iowa City, and I didn't go to the game over there, but we had the largest house party I think you could even imagine. We made like $1,400 that night.
Wow.
And I think the number was 6 times that the cops showed up, and we never got a ticket or anything, but I'll take your good luck on that aspect that we had a good time that night too.
You weren't in that house that was near Cap Tim Field, were you?
No.
That was famous for big parties.
I was on Campus Avenue.
Okay.
So, and then I do remember the fire truck being in Phoenix because I was in Phoenix for that. That was a good time.
It was a great time. A strange thing, after the game's over, some of us wandered out on the field. We're just wandering around on the field, and I noticed people are picking up little pieces of turf just so they could say they'd been there, And so I start grabbing a clump of grass, and there's this real friendly, big old deputy sheriff. He looks over at us. He goes, you folks from Iowa need to get out more.
Well, to add to that story, so everybody was doing that, and somehow they got a bunch of baggies. So everybody was taking their piece of sod and put it in the baggies and throw it in the back of the fire truck. Nobody ever remembered that after it. The next year, I'm going to clean it up, and I got a bunch of baggies full of grass floating in muddy water. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell. And I think I said something to Hank. He goes, "Oh my God, that's all the turf that everybody took."
Yeah.
It didn't travel well.
Yeah, right next to that field, Chris. And at that time it was the Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a Leinenkugel's microbrewery, like right outside.
Yeah.
And I think I got down there on like the Thursday before the game or something like that. And the Iowa State fans drank that place completely out of beer in the first 24 hours.
Way to go.
And we were two days from the game still. They had to start bringing semis in. That was the first time I can remember. I don't remember a lot of it. The first time I could remember, like, oh yeah, this is what happens when people show up on the road and have a good time. Because I mean, it was nuts. I mean, there was 30,000 Iowa State fans there probably for that game. I mean, somebody took a beer box and flattened it out and put an Iowa State flag on it and attached it to the railroad crossing lift right outside the stadium. So every time the train would go by, it would raise the flag up.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Awesome.
It was
awesome.
It was wild in Phoenix.
Yes, it was. It was a fun time.
Well, when we were at the Shreveport that first time, if you guys remember, there used to be a fire truck that sat right by the front of the Jacobson building. It was an old Ford.
Yeah.
And he had that rigged up where he had like 5 kegs on it. And so we went down together. We shared the truck, the cost of the truck to get down there. But that's when we were in the zoo. And we went through so many kegs that we'd call the distributor and they'd bring a beer truck out to replenish us. Yeah. We drank a few. One of the things we got to do is Shreveport was the city that donated a fire truck to New York after 9/11, and we were just driving around in the fire truck, and a bunch of all of their captains and chiefs in all their dress uniform were going to get a reward, and so they all climbed on, and we took them up to the stadium. So that was kind of a cool thing to do.
You know, one of the things that I think I love most about Iowa State is the fans and the passion and things like that. I was even listening to John Walters this morning on the radio talking about the tailgate tour that's coming up and how fans just flock that stuff. My first experience of it, I wasn't able to go to a lot of bowl games and things like that when I was younger, raising a family or whatever. So my first real experience was just 4 years ago in Vegas when they played UNLV in Las Vegas. And it was just a sea of Cyclone fans.
Oh yeah.
And then I went to the last Liberty Bowl in Memphis, and just literally having your Iowa State gear on, you're sitting in the lobby of the hotel. Me and my wife and our friends were just having some Revelton. Shout out to Revelton. And we at some point we had like 15 people standing in the hallway just drinking whiskey, just telling stories at one point because they were all Iowa State fans. They just happened to walk by or whatever. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about some of your favorite stories of just fan interaction, whether you're tailgating or you've got the truck or whatever. What are some of your favorite stories from just some fan interaction?
Well, one that comes to mind was in DeKalb. We had gone to dinner, gone to everything, got back to the hotel. They're all ready to go to sleep, and I'm ready. I'm still wanting to party, but we don't have any beer. So I walk up and down the hall, and I'm listening at doors, and I wait till I hear where I know there's Cyclone fans in there, and I knock on the door, and I go, "Hotel security," and they go, "Oh, cha, cha, cha," and they open the door up, and I go, "No, dude, I just want a beer. Can I come in?" I sat there for an hour with those guys.
Jesus Christ.
Cyclone fans are great.
Just last fall, it wasn't, the fire truck wasn't involved, but we were down at Kansas City when we played Kansas down there, and unfortunately, we didn't come out good too. But on the east side of Arrowhead there, it was just full of Cyclone fans, and we ended up doing those ski shots or whatever you want to call them, you know. With a whole bunch of great people that then we find out that they tailgate in the same area that we do in Ames, you know. So then we we get to hang with them a little bit the next home game. So, I mean, interactions like that happen all around wherever you have Cyclone fans together. You know, this isn't a fan interaction, but something I was told many, many, many years ago that always stuck with me. And once again, it goes back to Gene Smith. We're over at Bayer Hall playing some ball one morning, and whatever year it was, we were on the uptick. Football was going well, and basketball was going to be good and stuff. And he said, Hank, he says, you know, this is the best situation to be in. Of course, coming from where he went to school at Notre Dame and I don't know what other place he had before he got to Iowa State, but he said, when you're at a place where they always expect to win, they open up the paper and they expect to see their headlines. You know, you're just used to it and you're jaded. He says, when you are in a place where everything that is special and new happens to you and it hasn't happened before and it might happen again, he said, you can't have a more euphoric feeling as a fan base than when you do the unexpected. And now pretty soon you keep thinking we can do it again. So I'll never forget that. And he's absolutely right. If we've had so many special times because we were usually the underdog. You know, we weren't expected to be the one that did this and did that. Now, obviously, that has improved and changed dramatically in the last 15 years or so. But it's always nice to be so excited about a victory.
I much prefer to be the underdog. I don't like to be the guy with the target on his back. I think we play better as an underdog.
Yeah. Keith makes a comment. He says the second generation of fans that bring their kids to ride the fire truck.
That about brought a tear to my eye when I was sitting there and a young man came up holding a little toddler and said, "It's all right if my daughter rides on the fire truck." I said, "It's first come, first serve. You know, it's, you know, I don't charge people. It's just, you know, get a spot." And then the young man said, "Well, that's good because I had so much fun doing it when I was a kid." So that's a generational thing. So that means I've been doing it for a long time. It also means I'm getting pretty damn old.
Well, for God's sakes. You know, again, John Walters this morning was talking about those seeds that were planted. And now those seeds now have grown into strong Cyclone fans. You know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you may have had, you know, 5 of your buddies were Iowa State fans, but there was a lot of Iowa fans. But the PR that Iowa State has done and the work that they've done on the ground to do things like the tailgate tour and the meet and greets with the coaches and things like that, and getting those people out there and getting those young fans to start to watch Iowa State and then grow up to fall in love with it. Same thing for me. I went to Iowa State, graduated in 94. My daughter went to a lot of games. I engrossed her into Iowa State stuff, and she graduated from Iowa State 2 years ago, and she's another diehard fan. So it's those types of things and those types of memories. It amazes me sometimes. I wish I had as good as memory as some people. I will sit and scroll on Twitter and people will start talking about, oh, this game in 95 when this happened. And I'll be like, how do you remember that? But it's just those memories that everybody remembers.
Well, and that's the reason why I do this. It's you get the kids involved and they have so much fun, and it gives them an opening love for Iowa State. And just to be a part of the pregame stuff, it just means the world to me. And I'm glad that, so now we're on our 4th coaching staff. When after Mac left, they kept on, I can't remember the young man's name. They kept on an associate, and he had contacted me, and I said, well, of course we'll still do it for the 2 years of Chiswick. And then sorry, at least I said his name right. And then when Paul came in, I just saw Paul. I mean, Paul had been on Dan's staff, so I figured, well, we're in there. And when Paul left and Coach Campbell started doing that, I never assume anything. I mean, it's a different coach. I don't know. They might do something different. So I was waiting, but I needed to spend some money on it, and I was getting kind of late in the year. So finally, I contacted Mary Pink at marketing.
Yeah, I know Mary. Yep.
Because she's the one that is always, she's always there filming when we have a whole load on. And I said, Mary, no big deal, but I haven't heard from anybody. Are they going to want us to leave the team in? And she was kind of like taken aback. She goes, well, I didn't know we had to call you, Tim. You're a tradition. I said, well,
Take it for
It's
granted.
not written down anywhere, so
Right. Yeah, right.
I never take anything for granted.
Right.
And fans call him and have the truck show up to be part of their wedding ceremony.
So we've done 5 weddings, I believe.
Things like that. And Chris, going back to what you said about sowing the seeds and the change that has come over the last 30, 40 years. I can go all the way back 40 years, but in the 80s, when we would go over to cheer for our Cyclones and we were playing Iowa or back then, of course, Nebraska, in our stadium, we were outnumbered.
It was horrible.
We were outnumbered by the fans of the team we're playing against. When it was sad, and boy, it's not that way now.
No.
And I don't see how it could ever get like that again. I mean, we have the most, like you said, the word passionate. They really, really care. And fortunately, we're on a good tick here with Jamie and the coaches, that we've got wonderful and very, very good people leading these programs.
Yeah.
From TJ, I mean, it's fabulous.
Well, and we're at a point now where we used to be able to get, maybe a starting 5 or a starting, team in football that could play with anybody. But once somebody got hurt, we dropped off dramatically. Whereas the schools like Nebraska or whatever back in their heyday, they just next man up. And we're finally getting to the point now where, last season we got hit really bad linebacker wise.
Right.
And, a lot of injuries.
And turn around and won 11 games. So,
yeah.
Listen, let me take a break here, and then when I get back, I want to talk about some of your other stuff. You guys apparently have played some pickup games with some pretty famous Cyclones and some stories there, and get some more information. So let's get a word from some of our sponsors, and we'll be back with Hank and Tim.
All right.
Making great tasting bourbon requires the perfect combination of ingredients, conditions, and time. The longer it rests, the better it tastes. Revelton Distillery's new single barrel bourbon is made from 80% corn, sourced 100% from Iowa farmers. And unlike mass-produced bourbons, each barrel of Revelton's single barrel bourbon is unique, proofed on when it tastes best. As they like to say, it'll be ready when it's ready. And to ensure the highest standards of quality and flavor, owners Rob and Christy Taylor oversee the production and bottling. Every single barrel. Iowa born, Iowa aged, Iowa bottled. Try the new single barrel bourbon from Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com.
When energy meets precision, anything is possible.
I'm Carter Hawley, the Chief Energy Officer of the Iowa State Cyclones. I'm full of energy on and off the court, but nothing gives me more energy than helping families find their dream home. And that's where Green Beret Realty comes in. They're more than just realtors. They're a team dedicated to getting things right for you and your family, just like we get it right on the court.
No basket. That was on the floor before the shot. Out of bounds.
Come on! Can you believe that? You can't take that away from me.
That call was absolutely terrible. Are you guys cautiously trying to be this bad? I mean, does your mom not love you?
Have you seen how old my partner is? My back hurts already from carrying him all night. And I've heard enough out of you.
So you're gone. Fine. Jim, are you blind? Basket's good. We've got a three-pointer. Sometimes it takes a team to get the call right. And when you're buying a home, you want a team that makes all the right calls. That is Green Beret Realty. And here's the best part. When you buy or sell a home through Dan at Green Beret Realty and mention this ad, he'll make a donation to the We Will Collective, helping student athletes like me thrive on and off the court.
That call's so easy, even we can make it.
Green Beret Realty, because getting the call right means everything.
All right, and we're back with Hank and Tim. A couple house real quick here. What?
Well, before we move off of the fire truck thing, I have a question.
Okay.
Obviously, sending the fire truck to Ireland is not logistically
Are you doing it, Tim? Now, if you guys want to help out, I talked to
GoFundMe.
See, GoFundMe. I drive, and I'll be on the tailgate tour. I drive the equipment truck for them, and I was doing it last year, and ran into Jamie Pollard after a bar and a couple of cocktails, and I said, "Yo, Jamie, you got room on the plane for the fire truck?" And he just kind of shook his head at me, didn't give me an answer. So, don't think it's going to make it over there.
Yeah, well, the logistics of it and trying to get it back in time for the other games would be difficult. But I wonder if there's a way to find a fire truck over there already.
That's
substitute in.
That's possible.
I mean, somebody over there's got to have an antique fire truck, you know.
And they put out fires everywhere.
There was one of the games that we didn't bring the fire truck to was the game we played in Houston. And the practice field, you had to walk across it was a walkway that went across the 4-lane highway to get back to where they were staying. And as they were walking across, there was a regular Houston fire engine driving up, and they hit their lights when they saw the team up there. And Mac turned around and said, "Hey, that crazy Gleason bought a new fire truck."
Oh, that's funny.
Well, before we do get off that, I have to show you our ride. This is the ambulance that we got last year. It was already pre-done, and then I'll tell you a little bit of history. I'll tell you a little history of this.
They cleaned up the blood, I see.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we're pretty much in love with it. So it had always been my dream to have something like that too. I would look every once in a while, and then it popped up. It actually popped up on Facebook Marketplace in January of 2023, 2 weeks after I had just gotten fired from my job and I didn't have a job.
No.
And the person only wanted $2,500 for it. It was not running. And I jokingly tweeted out and said, somebody needs to loan me $2,500 because my wife will shoot me if I buy this and don't have a job. Well, Brent Curvey, who's a friend of mine and does a podcast for us, sends me a text. He says, "Hey, I just bought that ambulance." And I was like, "What the fuck, dude?" I was like, he's like, "I'm gonna try to," because he has Coach's Kolaches. He has a restaurant. He's like, "I think I'll take it to tailgates and sell kolaches out of it." So about 3 months later, he texts me and says, "Hey, I got it running." It was a few hoses and some stuff like that. Well, then he never got around to it. And then his kid commits to Kansas. So we're on the podcast one night, and I said, "Hey, Curvey, what are you just going to drive that thing down there and troll a bunch of Kansas fans all the time?" So about 3 days later, he calls me. He's like, "Hey, it's kind of dawned on me. I'm not probably going to ever use this thing." He's like, "I'm going to put it on Facebook. I would like to sell it, but I don't want to deal with the hassle. Do you think you could post it for me?" And I said, "Well, what do you want for it?" So I made a deal to buy it. And the night before he was going to give it to me, he called me the next morning. He was like, "Hey, I was driving this to the shop and it overheated and now I can't get it started." And I'm like, "Okay, well, we're going to have to renegotiate price."
Yeah, obviously.
So I ended up buying it for what he bought it for, which was $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
I replaced 2 batteries and some more hoses, and it's been running ever since.
Wow, congrats.
But the original owner before Brent was Kyle Starcevich, who also played football for Iowa State.
Okay, that name doesn't. But Brett, Dan McCarney, one time we were feeding the team Hezekiah Jackson, and I worked for the Machine Shed restaurant. Now, Hezekiah was a fullback. His son ended up playing linebacker, and his daughter is on the women's basketball team.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we as a pretty athletic family, and we had a room set for them because that was back when they were driving to Nebraska, and Mac introduced me and Hezekiah to the team, and then he was talking. I don't know how he started talking about Brett Curvey, but he said, and I call Brett my 2 pitchers guy, and he goes, "What I mean by that is he can get down in his four point stand and you could put a pitcher of beer on each of his buttocks. So ask him if he remembers that.
I'll have to ask him that. I'll have to ask him. So outside of the fire truck, it sounds like you guys have some pretty good stories of playing basketball with some guys. And
that would be Hank.
So you don't play basketball, Tim?
Not very well. Well, put it this way. When I said we played softball together, I was usually the designated drinker.
Okay.
That's
a good job.
I was very good at that.
You got to put them in the right position.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to be successful.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, but you guys both have, it sounds like, Tim, you obviously have a history in the restaurant business, and Hank, you owned Happy Joe's in Ames, which when I put this out, several people were like, oh, that place was so great. I remember going there when I was in college and things like that. A lot of memories there, I would imagine.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
I ate there quite a bit on Sunday nights when the dining hall wasn't open, I'll be honest.
You know,
because I think you guys had a buffet there on Sunday nights just for that reason.
We started doing it some nights, and then pretty soon we did it every day for lunch, and then a couple of the nights. Maybe we didn't make as much money off the buffet, depending on if Curvey and some of his buddies came in. But it was a lot easier, you know, for us. Instead of making individual orders, you just give them a plate, take some money, and keep them full and happy.
Sure.
You talk about old stories in basketball, and of course I've got a lot of them, Chris and Aaron, but most of them are about wonderful, fabulous people, but your audience now may not remember them. But when Ann and I first got married in 1976, when I was operating a restaurant here in Ames, I didn't own it at that time, but we were in our first place we lived was in an apartment on North Highland in Ames. And if you're somewhat familiar, basically I was 2 blocks down from both Beyer Hall and State Gym. And I loved basketball. I never was good enough to play in college or anything like that, but I just loved playing and loved the camaraderie and the competition. And, you know, you get over there and play as good as you can. So I'd go over to State Gym and try to get in the game. Well, what I found out when I walk in there at lunch is it's a closed court. There's basically, they want just 12 people showing up. So it's 5-on-5 full court at State Gym, which is a regulation full-size court. So you're not only going to get great basketball, you're going to get in really good shape if you can do it. But they only wanted like 2 extra people, so that once the team lost, those 2 got to pick from the guys that lost and play the next game. And it just kept rotating like that. But it wasn't like you could just show up and say, hey, I want to be in, because they wanted to make sure that the competition was up to their standards. They didn't want goofballs
like me
just showing up and goobering up their game. So for the first week or so, I just go over there and just take my tennies one hand and ball in the other and shoot a bunch of shots at one end and wait my turn in case I'm just hoping one day, and it finally happened, they go, hey, we're short one. Do you want to run with us? And I run into people like Jay Norvell, George Amundsen, David Archer, Bobby Randall, who was running the baseball team then, marvelous man and fabulous basketball player and very, very competitive. From here in town, Ev Cochran, Randy Larson, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, and Chris Jensen. But it was interesting. There were 2 people that really ran that whole gym. They were in charge of who was on who, which team or whatever. And one would be Ev when he was there, which was most of the time. But it was just a delight to meet and play ball for so many years then with what I consider the patriarch of current Iowa State basketball, and that's Gary Thompson.
Yeah.
And I didn't know him. I can remember the first couple of times I come down all tired out and sweaty and flopping on the couch down at our apartment, and Ann goes, well, it looks like you got in a good game. And I said, God, it's wonderful competition up there, tremendous ball players. And I said, Ann, you ain't gonna believe this. There's this one guy up there. I don't know how much older he is than me, but I'll bet he's in his 40s. At that time, of course, I was
Yes.
And I thought 40 was freaking ancient. And I said, not only is he that old, but he's the best player on the whole court. And he was. I mean, Gary was, at whatever age he was the best player out there. If you're on his team, you won, because it wasn't just him. He'd make everybody else better. And it was so good to play with some of those guys, you know, because, you know, I just moved to town and I didn't know the history and stuff like that. And it was wonderful.
Well, I've got my Gary Thompson story is that I ran into him. We were playing Kansas at Hilton Coliseum. It was on January 14th. And of course, it was January 14th, 1957, when then the Iowa State beat then number 1 Kansas and Wilt Chamberlain. And I told him, I know exactly where I was on that day. And he goes, yeah, where? I said, I was taking my first breath. That was my birthday.
Gary knows exactly where he was too.
Yeah.
And of course, go ahead, Chris.
That's okay. It's funny that I remark, because my first recollection of Gary Thompson obviously was his broadcast on TV. And then when you hear guys like Eric Heft and not realizing what an amazing ball player he was too, but all I've ever known him to be was an announcer.
Yeah, Eric and I used to play against each other all the time in City League here. Good ball player, good guy too. They were just great people. Speaking of great people, a while back you did that podcast with our friend Lefty.
Yes,
and he got to tell him a bunch of the stories of all the wonderful Big 8 and Big 12 athletes that he's played with, and then a bunch of us rummies going around to different tournaments and stuff. One thing I want to mention about Lefty is that he is a quality person, but he also has the ability to find the qualities in other people. And if he knows they're there, he'll bring them out and you'll be better for it. But if he doesn't believe they're there, then you got nothing to do with them. When we would put together these teams that would travel around and play in different tournaments, of course, he had the connections to people with other colleges, Drake, UNI, Iowa, and that. And we'd pick up some of those players. And sometimes we'd be in tournaments and I'd see a guy playing that was really good playing against us. And when we go to another tournament, I go, Lefty, should we pick up that person who played for this other college? Should we get him? And he goes, no. Hank, this is what will happen with him. He says, we don't want him on our team. If things get tough, the first thing he'll do is quit on us, and then he'll embarrass us. He says he doesn't have the character. And I mean, he could see that, and it'd be spot on. We'd end up playing against him, and the guy'd get 3 technicals and get kicked out, Mm-hmm. But he was very honest and very good at looking at talent and figuring out who deserves to play and who shouldn't,
Well, he certainly just demonstrated that on the podcast with some of the connections that he's had and some of the players that he's found and things like that. So
yeah, and the great thing is he keeps doing it with the younger kids.
Yeah,
because if they're in his program, there's no finer place to be as far as learning basketball and how to do it right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We're going to take another break here. We're going to get a word from Kyle Lehman. This is the portion of the show where we ask you a question, guys. And then I'll give you the time during the break to think of an answer. So, all your time and names and things like that. Go ahead and think of one best story that you can think of one of the coaches that you've had to interact with, whether it's Coach Mack. I don't know if you guys were around with Coach Orr or something like that. Let's hear a really story you probably haven't told for a while about one of the coaches, and let's get a word from Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage, and we'll come back. We'll get you guys' answer, okay?
All right. Okay.
Whether you're buying, selling, or refinancing your home, or if it's simply time to renovate the one you're already living in, you need an experienced mortgage professional to help you analyze your financing options and to make sure the closing goes smoothly. And that's exactly what you get when you call Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage. Kyle's experience and expertise, coupled with Wintrust's rates and programs, ensures you'll get the mortgage that's right for you. You may even qualify for down payment assistance. Before you reach out to a realtor, call Kyle and get pre-qualified, empowering you to start shopping for the home of your dreams. Call Kyle at 515-473-0546. Kyle Lehman, Wintrust Mortgage, 515-473-0546.
All right, and we're back with our guests, Tim Gleason, Hank Kohler. All right, guys, before the break, I asked you best story about a coach or that you can tell, maybe the statutes of limitations or that you can tell a story.
Mine's short and sweet. It's Coach Mack, and after we beat Nebraska, when we're starting to come up, they were doing a live ESPN from his house. So like a bunch of idiots, we all got up. We found Butch Hansen was sober, so he drove us up to Mac's house. So we're going to invite ourselves in. And as we pulled in the driveway, I'm starting to get, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. Well, Butch goes in. Matt comes out to the stoop and waves us all in. Now, he was famous for learning a person's name once and never forgetting it.
Yes.
And as I walked up, I said, "You remember me, don't you, Coach?" And he said, "Sure I do, Donnie." And I became Donnie for the next year. And to this day, Butch Hansen won't let me live it down.
Well, since he said he'll never forget the name, I'll just got to go back real quick to Coach Orr and then come back to Mac. And I certainly wasn't a close acquaintance at all with Johnny, but I'd had interaction with him several times. And the cool thing about Coach, if you knew him or had heard the stories, is he didn't have to remember names. He didn't remember any names because everybody was Coach. Oh yeah, Coach. Yeah, we're gonna get him today, Coach. How you been, Coach? Good to see you, Coach. If everybody he ever talks to is Coach, he doesn't have to worry about names. And now I'm going to shift one to Mac just to show you he's just a great guy. He is. Besides a coach, he's just a wonderful person. Well, way back in the day, so this is like 2000 or 2001 or 2 or whatever, I was a part of what's called the Story County Cyclone Club, and there for a while I was up on top of the little stage there talking to people when we'd have our meetings, and Coach Mack was there, and we were just talking one time in between having our lunch and stuff, and I said, "Coach, I got it," and I didn't know him then at all, really, not very well, but Coach, I got something I'd like to mention. He goes, "What's up, Hank?" And I said, "Tim leads this fire truck in." He goes, "Yeah, that's great." He brings it in, and then all the players get off the bus, and there's always a line of fans, a lot of little kids. These are their heroes, They just want them to see them and say hi, or maybe not recognize, but at least, be able to say good luck and stuff like that. And I said, "Coach, the issue is when the players get off, they're getting themselves ready for the game. They're getting psyched up. So they got their earphones on and they're just cranking up their music, which, there's nobody loves music more than me. But if they could just, while they're walking there, have those off and actually have eye contact with and say thank you and maybe shake hands and thank you with some of those kids and that, I think it'd mean the world to them." So that's like on a Tuesday or something, we're having one of those meetings. The next Saturday, every Saturday from then on, those guys got off the bus, eye contact with all the friends. Thank you. This is awesome. So, I mean, he'll listen to a tiny little suggestion and say, that's the way we should do it. So,
it's just a testament to Coach Mack. I remember the first time my wife was shopping at a shopping center and I was done walking around and I sat at one of the booths and I pulled my phone out and I sent him a direct message on Facebook Messenger and introduced myself and asked him to be a member or a guest on the podcast. And within 10 minutes, he answered me back and said, "Absolutely, I would love to do that. Here's my number." And I was sitting there stunned for like 5 minutes, like, holy shit, I just talked to Dan McCartney. And he answered me back. And it's the same way I feel about Marcus. Marcus Pfizer is a contributor on Side of the Storm, one of our podcasts. And I remember after getting off the podcast with him the first time we had on, and he's like, "Oh, this was a lot of fun." He's like, here's my number. I'd love to do it anytime. And I remember going up to my wife and going, my life is fucking surreal. I have Marcus Pfizer's phone number in my phone right now. Like, it's insane. But that's just the testament of the people that come through those doors, I think.
Yeah, absolutely right, Chris. Quality people. People.
Absolutely.
Hey, I got one more Mac story quick that I just thought of. The first time when Jamie became the AD, they decided that the team was going to come up the other side without clearing it through Mac. So I think that I go up the side that they're going up now because I was told to do it. And it wasn't, Mac was upset. He almost backed the buses up and did it. So after it, we went through there. Don Knock called me. I got, this is something I just do for fun. I'm getting yelled at. The next day, I got a text from Mac when the team was about ready to come in. And it was like, "Hey, Tim, just wanted to know if you're going to fuck things up again this week."
Well, we're going to do our final segment, and then we'll get you guys out of here. We know it's late. You're older than we are, so you guys probably need to go to bed.
You might have noticed.
Yeah.
I bet they can hang better than you can, Chris.
I guarantee you they can hang better than me. I'm married to a teacher. I'm usually in bed by 8:15.
Well, Aaron's out in Seattle, so he's already 2 hours younger in all this.
Yeah, too bad he doesn't know how to run any of this equipment, or he'd be on here longer. So
that's right.
But this segment is what we call the "Shut the Fuck Up" segment, where we, Aaron and I, shut the fuck up and let you guys say whatever you want. But it's inspired by a previous guest who told one of our hosts to shut the fuck up, and we thought it was so great that we decided to make it a sponsored segment. In a way, we're asking people to donate to the Young Women's Resource Center by listening to a quick note from Steph Copley. And if you're compelled to donate to a great organization, because that's what Three Beards Media does, we do a lot of work for charity. That's kind of what Aaron and I started this for, was to give a lot of money back. So we're going to play this clip from Steph, ask people to donate to the Young Women's Resource Center. And when we come back, Tim and Hank, Aaron and I have shut the fuck up, and you can say whatever you want about any subject, about anything. There's no limits whatsoever. So let's get a word from Steph.
Hey everybody, it's Steph Copley, the woman behind the STFU segment on the Old Man Strength podcast. When I told the guys I wanted to sponsor this segment, they recommended that I make a charitable donation instead, so that's what I did. I chose the Young Women's Resource Center in Des Moines, Iowa. They're a nonprofit that supports, educates, and advocates for girls and young women ages 10 to 24. Their whole goal is to make sure that these young women become strong, self-confident, and successful. And if you know me at all, you know that aligns with my goals as well. If you're interested and would like to donate, check them out at ywrc.org and donate today. And remember, don't forget to STFU and listen every once in a while. Thanks.
Wow.
All right. So the floor is your guys's. Aaron and I will shut the fuck up. You guys can say whatever you want.
All right. One thing I want to do is I want to shout out to the Gridiron Club. Terry Main had contacted me. They want to do some sort of partnering up with, maybe put the Gridiron Club on there and try and help spread the word about all the good work that they do. So together, because we're also looking at, I'd love to have Beyond Tim to keep the fire truck going. So I'm trying to lay some groundwork with them, and I think it's going to be going pretty well.
All right. I just want to don't shut me up on this. Over here is my nephew, Jackson Plummer, who's in aerospace engineering here. So things for him, he is a rocket science, and it's his equipment we're using, including the mic and stuff. So a big shout out to Jackson and his drinking buddies.
All right, there we go.
And Aaron, keep working on that funding and get that fire truck over to Ireland. I'll be expecting to hear back from you.
Just get a big damn raft and start rolling the bitch.
I gotta figure out, if I almost bet you could rent one, or somebody's got one over there that we could substitute it in.
Do you know how much publicity you'd get if you get like 80 girls to help you row a fire truck on a raft across the Atlantic?
It'd be tough. That would be a tough trip.
Well, Tim, Hank, I want you to stay on after we close the show. I want to ask you guys a couple of follow-up things off air. But I want to plug one last thing here at Three Beards Media. Like I said, we do a lot of charity work here. So May 20th, Tim, Hank, if you're available and you want to come down to Cumming, Iowa, I'll buy you a drink. But we're doing a live episode of one of our podcasts, Bill and Willie's Workshop. I don't know if you guys know who Willie Farrell is, the famous comedian here in Des Moines. Him and Bill do a podcast every Tuesday night for the Three Beards Media Network. They're going to do a live episode at the Iowa Distilling Company. And for every $1 that's drank and sold that night, they will be donating that to the animal rescue. So
$1 for every drink, Chris, not sold. Every $1.
That's right. Sorry, $1 for. I got it right on the flyer. Shut the fuck up. So
won't be making promises we can't afford.
There you go.
So be sure to join us May 20th at Iowa Distilling Company at 6:30. So. Guys, really appreciate you coming on. You're welcome to come on anytime. It's been a blast to have you on. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you, Chris and Aaron. We appreciate it. And go Cyclones.
Go Cyclones. Guys, stay on. I want to talk to you a little bit after the break here. So with that, we are out of here.
Old man strength, built to last. Try to break me, you won't get past. Ain't no quit, ain't no doubt. You don't know tough till you've been worn out. We'll make it, you'll understand.
one